Before we get into today's mailbag, make sure you guys share today's video for me on social media if you haven't done so already. Any platform in which you desire, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, it works for us. We're really just trying to get the word out there to more Bengals fans that aren't necessarily tapped into what we're doing here at Bengals Breakdown. So help us out. Share today's video for me right now. First question from my guy, Tim Tyra. Do you think Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals, will get an extension done, or will the Bengals let him finish out this upcoming season and tag him 2 times? Play or retire? Good question here from Tim Tyra. It is still my belief that Cincinnati is going to get something done with Trey Hendrickson, but they also are going to have to kind of meet in the middle here because Trey Hendrickson loves coming on and, playing this kind of good guy role, which I'm not saying he's not a good guy. He seems to say and do all the right things. I'm not going after him at all, but at some point he's got to understand what Cincinnati is doing, who they are paying, what they are trying to do as an organization. He might have to take a little bit less. I don't know if ultimately he is going to do that, but Duke Tobin said at the Combine it was a priority. Katie Blackburn, despite some of her comments that some people have kind of gotten a little up in arms about, maybe they were a little snarky to some degree. I think that's kind of fair to say that with Katie Blackburn's comments. But Duke Tobin, he went out there and said those things about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He turned around and made it happen. We'll see if he can do that with Trey Hendrickson. At this point, I don't have any reason not to believe him. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, and it could perhaps get a little bit ugly. But right now, if I had to pick, I would say ultimately Trey Hendrickson is able to reach a new deal with Cincinnati before week 1 of next year. CWT, are you happy with what Zac Taylor said at the coaches' meeting? Yeah, I would say so. Really, the only thing that I was disappointed by was kind of their plan at guard / lack thereof, because it didn't seem like there was much of a plan. I think at this point here, I get it, right? Free agency for the most part has kind of came and went, or there's some guys that are still available, sure. But, I think their approach there at that guard spot, it was really the only thing that was a little frustrating for me. They're going to have to get one in the draft, and Scott Peters and Zac Taylor are going to have to do a great job developing them to make sure that they are in a good season or in a good spot to go out there and execute at a professional level for him this season. But I really liked what Taylor had to say about the preseason. I think that kind of was the number one thing for me. They got to play more in the preseason. Obviously, there is the concern with the injuries, but you can't continue to start out the way you have in September. This isn't just a one-year thing. This has been a reoccurring theme since Zac Taylor got here in 2019. Something has to change, and I think the number one most obvious thing you could change is playing those guys a little bit more in the preseason. An opportunity for you guys to get involved here with our show. Do you want the starters to play more in the preseason? Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes or N for no. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that is totally fine. You can ignore it, take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Who Dey, number 9. Bengals thoughts on Jonah Savaiinaea. I mocked him in our second mock draft. We will have another one that comes out eventually. We have 2 mock drafts out right now. Make sure you guys check those out on the channel. Our second one, I had the Bengals taking him in the second round, and PFF said that was like a D selection for me. It may have even been an F. I like Savaiinaea a lot. I think you're kind of in an awkward spot there. I'm not quite sure he's a second-round guy, but I liked what we saw from him in Arizona. I think he's going to do great in an offense that likes to drop back and chuck the football around the field like Cincinnati does. Got some run-blocking concerns with Savaiinaea. Some people would say it's an overdraft to take him there in the second round. I think the Bengals might just be in an awkward spot to land him. But if he's available and you're thinking offensive line and it isn't too early in the draft, I definitely think he would be a good selection, hence why I mocked him to Cincinnati in one of my mock drafts. Tim Tyra, will the Bengals draft 1 or 2 guards in the draft? Interesting question. I was thinking that they would sign 2 free agent guards, and obviously they only did 1 with Lucas Patrick. So as of now, Cincinnati only has 6 picks, and they've got lots of needs on their football team. I would say 1 probably. Maybe they take, a tackle that hopefully can play guard, perhaps. It's when you're dealing with offensive linemen here in the draft, I think a lot of times you find yourselves in situations like that where it's like, okay, this guy was a great tackle in college, but he's going to have to move to the inside if he's going to be productive in the National Football League. But offensive linemen, If you're making me pick, I would like this answer to be 2, but I would say Bengals probably will take 1 here. Maybe they get their 7th round pick back somehow and are able to get another one, but I'll go with 1 here right now. Make sure you guys go over to Fanatics and check out their draft hats over on Fanatics. Really cool stuff over there. We've got some new pictures here loaded in to our graphics here. Really encourage you guys to go over to Fanatics. Check some of these out. I have not been able to get any of these new ones, but boy, they've got some really clean ones over on Fanatics. These are some of the best ones that I have seen up there on Fanatics, chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. We're going to put that link in the comment section and the description of today's video for you guys. One more time, that is chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. Caleb Norman. Who is your dream first-round pick? Good question here from Caleb. Dream first-round pick? Travis Hunter, but I'll go realistic. Dream first-round pick here for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I will say Jalen Walker. We're actually doing a little mock draft at Chat Sports across all of our hosts here, and we're all picking players for each of the teams, and he was available to me in this Chat Sports one. At 17, and I took him, and I didn't think twice about it. I would be shocked if when a couple weeks roll around, if he's available actually for Cincinnati at that 17 overall position. But Jalen Walker, to me, is a guy that can wear multiple different hats for you on defense. He can drop back there with Logan Wilson at that linebacker position. He can also get after the quarterback there as well. I think that versatility is something that really you desperately seek, because you've got so many holes on your defense. I would think he would fit in really well with what Al Golden is trying to accomplish his first year as the Bengals defensive coordinator. So I would go with Jalen Walker as my dream pick out of Georgia. Felicia, will Lucas Patrick start? Good question here from Felicia. I don't know. I think the Bengals are bringing him in to kind of get into that competition, right? This definitely isn't a situation where, we signed Lucas Patrick, you pencil him in there next to Ted Karras along the offensive line as a starter. No, I don't think that is the case. He is going to compete with Cody Ford, Cordell Volson, and whoever the Bengals draft. So 4 or 5 guys are going to be competing for that spot. Another name we haven't really talked about is Matt Lee, who 7th-round pick out of Miami last year is Ted Karras' backup at center. I don't know if the Bengals think he can play guard or not. I really like him as a center, but I'm not quite sure if he can play guard for Cincinnati. We will see. But Lucas Patrick, Zac Taylor seemingly loves him. He was glowing about him at some of those meetings down in Florida when he was talking about him. So hopefully that pans out. Hopefully Scott Peters can make the most of it as well. We talk about that hire. Zac Taylor hiring Scott Peters, arguably the biggest decision he has made of his career. We will see if it pans out, but I don't know if Lucas Patrick is going to start. He's definitely going to compete for a starting spot. Bye, Felicia. All right, let's talk whole confidence level here in the Bengals offensive line. Scale it for me in the comments section. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Get down there and scale it. Confidence level in the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. Dr. B, James Rapine, says that we should draft best player available no matter offense or defense. Do you agree? I would say to an extent. I would say yes. If it's tight end, no, unless it's Tyler Warren. So basically not Colston Loveland is basically what I would say to that. You've got a lot of holes. Really, anybody on defense, you shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't. If there's a defensive player you don't like that the Bengals draft, yeah, you could be mad about that. But there's no reason to say, I like this guy, but that's not the position that I would want to draft there. I think that's what Rapine's trying to hammer home. You don't want to necessarily draft position. You want to draft the player. Like Jahad Campbell, if he's sitting there at 17 and you've got some guys off your board that you fell in love with that are no longer available, don't not take Jahad Campbell just because he's a linebacker and you feel okay what you have at linebacker, even though linebacker definitely is a need. But what I'm trying to say is don't draft the position. Got to draft the player, which can be hard for us as fans, right? Because I'm kind of sitting there like, go get an edge rusher, right? Well, you might not love an edge rusher, and you might love a linebacker or a corner or a safety or an offensive lineman. So it kind of goes with that. But, yeah, I don't think necessarily, like if Tet McMillan is there at 17, no, you don't draft Tet McMillan. Your receivers are good. You've got the best receivers in the National Football League. Do not take a receiver at 17 overall. Same with a guy like I just mentioned, Colston Loveland. A running back in the first round wouldn't make any sense either. But beyond those 3 positions, quarterback obviously, behind those 4, I would say best player available for sure. Caleb Norman, this entire franchise is like a bad breakup. Yeah, I get your frustration, no doubt about it. They definitely seemingly make things hard. My biggest gripe is that when people come out, like Katie Blackburn says one thing, right? And then Trey Hendrickson comes out and basically says, oh, no, that's not true. I haven't even heard from them. I got a problem with that, all right? Either somebody stop lying or let's get on the same page here. But regardless, yeah, it does seem like a lot of drama with this organization. I was telling Chris earlier, when you look at their front office, it's just a handful of people. Like, they got like 3 scouts, then you got Tobin and Blackburn, right? And it's kind of a family business thing. And then Zac Taylor's in there as well. Shoot, Joe Burrow's probably at the top somewhere, right? Seemingly he's like an assistant GM. But regardless, there's lots of frustrating elements of this organization. But they do deserve a lot of credit for getting those deals done with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and, of course, Joe Burrow a couple of years ago. If you are enjoying this mailbag, we appreciate you. And you're in luck because we are going to keep doing these for you guys. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/BengalsTV. From Mike, what are the chances we trade down in the draft and acquire more picks? This is definitely something that could happen, very much so. Look, Cincinnati's not going to trade up in the draft. That's not something they would do. But trade back for more picks, I totally could see it. They're kind of at an awkward spot. At 17 overall, right? You know, it's not like you have a top 10 pick. You're not going to get a great player. You can still get a good player at 17. But if you move back to like 22 and then add a couple of picks, maybe a 3rd rounder, a 5th rounder, yeah, that's something that I would do personally. You only have 6 picks. You got a lot of holes. I would like to stock up on those picks a little bit. I think trading back would definitely be a good possibility for Cincinnati. It's just whether or not they are able to do that. Are they competent enough to be able to do that? Sit there, they're on the clock. Okay, all of our guys that we love are off the board. Let's make a trade. Are they able to do that? I don't know, but I definitely think it's something that they should consider.